know when magic works? How do we know that it's magic? How do we know any of these things, I guess? Especially in today's landscape where like everything is in doubt. We doubt the scientists, we doubt publications, we doubt our politicians, we doubt so much of everything. And while I'm not necessarily an enemy of doubt, I find it more and more fascinating as more and more doubt comes into the world, the people who are so sure of things in general, especially when you are, say, participating in something like a spirituality, religion, or, you know, where there's so much doubt surrounding it and really no quote unquote hard evidence that can be put forward to say, yeah, this is definitely a thing. One of the things that kind of like trickled into my head a lot when I'm thinking of when I know things is just so much of it is based on personal experience. It's a very anecdotal, you know, my experiences. And when I like people ask like, how do you know you're a witch? How do you know if you have done magic? How do you know if a spell has worked? And it's sometimes it's like, okay, I can sit down and be like, okay, by this date on this time I will see a result, and if I do, then yay. But then also like, what other factors were there? You know, if you broke this down to like the scientific method type of deal, it wouldn't probably pan out. It would be considered a not successful study, you know, that someone could easily replicate and then repeat. It'd be something like, no, there's too many factors all going wonky here. You can't say that was a for sure result of that, right? What is it? Correlation is not necessarily causation. That lovely phrase. It's funny how I get sometimes direct messages, questions about things or comments about like, well, how do you know? How do you know? How do you know? How do you know? Over and over and over again. A lot of it is to like, how do you know you contacted a deity? How do you know if the spell worked? How do you know if you have a gift of some sort? It comes to me back to a lot of the ways, the same way that people talk about, say, when they've met, quote unquote, the one. Now, you can have multitude of thoughts on the one, soulmates. Are you destined to find someone? I have very complex feelings about all the love and soulmate. I think did I make a full video on it? Yes, I did. I made a video on some of my thoughts. Those are pretty much the same, so I'll either card or link down below is most likely if you're interested in that. But when people talk about meeting the one, and I have long, on my mom's side, a lot of people they've been married for a long time, and they are very committed with their partners. They are people who are devout and in love, and yeah, I've definitely gone through some hard times, but as I think every marriage probably does at some point, wouldn't know, don't have first-hand experience of that yet, but I see their devotion and their partnership and their constant willingness to work and piece things together. And every single one of them have all said to me at some point, oh honey, when you meet the one, you'll know. And I'm like, what do you mean you know? They're like, and over and over again, it seems like they say that, but then they give like, oh, well, they give a bunch of different reasons to expect, but then they kind of negate their reasons later, right? It's almost like there is no reason to know, you just will know. I've heard aunts and uncles both of varying degrees of religious faith, like some are flat out atheists, some are very devoutly Christian, some are weirdly in the middle, and all of them have said at some point that when they met their partner, they were like, yeah, no, I just knew that one's it, that's my person. And I'm like, that's a very strong definitive to just be like, yes. And they would say things like, yeah, doubts come in. They would come in like, I shouldn't feel this way. I shouldn't know this. There's no way for me to know this. You know, the logical doubt would seep in. But there was just this knowing kind of in them somehow that said, yeah, no, this is it. This is the one. I know I'm going to be with you, period. And that knowing is always fascinating to me, because at first I was like, oh, maybe just the way that certain generation talks about love, right? Because love is very unquantifiable. Like, how do you know if you love someone? You just do. I love them. How do you know why do you love the person? Sometimes you can kind of drill it down a little bit, like, oh, it's how they make me feel. I'm a better person with them, or, you know, but then that counteracts the struggle. It's so funny how when you see people, like, asking a person seriously who's in love, why do you love that person? And you see them for at times go like, it's hilarious to me, the variety in relationships and how, you know, vast and different in communication stuff. There's so much variety, but I have been blessed again and again and again to witness when people are really good for each other and a good partner, and they both acknowledge it so well. And dear friends of mine who are more my generation have definitely say the same thing. I've got really good friends in high school who I remember them talking about meeting their person, and they're like, yeah, I just remember we used to talk all the time about like those high school boyfriends and everything else. It's like, you just know. One of my good best friends from back in college, same thing. They met their person and they were just like, you just know. Like, I don't know how to explain it to you other than you just know, right? Because we would be those people staying up with like drinking after really bad dates and being like, why? Like, what is the secret? What is the thing? It's just like, there is no secret. You just somehow happen upon them and then you just know. You just know, yeah, no, that one's it. I found you. This is gonna work out. And sometimes it's instantaneous. Sometimes it happens a little bit later. So, you know, something just occurs and they're like, oh, huh. Again, if you try to take logic and shove it in there and give it an explanation that could be explained to someone who's not experienced it, it is nigh impossible to just be like, I don't know how to explain this to you. It is. You'll know when you know. And I find it so fascinating that it seemed to be a reoccurring thing that I hear. And so whenever I'm doubting if I should continue on a relationship or if I should do a thing or whatever else, I'm constantly brought back to the fact that I think people, like, they want you to find the thing, right? They want you to find that partner if that is something you were looking for in life. They're wanting you to do that. And so they'll give you a whole bunch of like, oh, well, make sure they have this and make sure they have this quality and make sure that this happens. And yet if you really drill them on it again, it's just, well, you just know. Like, you'll just know this one's it. This is good for me. And that is just such a curious thing to me because I really had nothing to relate it to for so long. I have not known anything about any of my partners. Oh, I've always questioned fucking everything. I'm like, is this person good for me? Is it not? There are times when I thought, yeah, this is someone I could marry. But it was never like that really firm knowing. It was more of a, well, we've been together this long and it seems really good and I can see a future for us. So it's like, yeah, of course I would marry this person. And then suddenly, as I've been exploring witchcraft and playing with magic and communing with deity and doing weird, like, going into the astral and like doing all these things that have no like firm scientific backing, you know, there's not a logical reason outright that says, yes, this is a thing that is happening for surezies. You cannot deny it in any way, shape, or form. You can deny it in about 7 different ways. But there's a knowing. It was funny how I encountered the information about paganism, witchcraft, energies, these types of topics, the occult. And in my minor dabbling, something just like, you know, it just like went, ooh, like there's like a thing in the back of your head, like that thing in your soul. I don't know, it feels right. It was interesting too when I first traveled to Portland and I checked it out. I remember walking around in absolute, what a lot of people consider awful weather. It was freezing cold, it was the middle of winter, it was raining, cloudy, misty, foggy. And oh, I just remember walking around with a friend of mine at the time and going, it wasn't even a very picturesque part of Portland, it was kind of meh. I remember just going, oh yeah, this feels like home. It was just a knowing, I just knew. I remember my friend at the time saying like, oh, you're just on a vacation high, like stay here for longer, check it out again, make sure, get some evidence to back up your reasoning, right? I came back again and again and again and it was just this knowing, and there was no, like, if you look at like there's no logical reason for me to have moved here other than I wasn't happy, this place felt good, I moved. I just knew this would be a better place for me. I knew this could be a good home for me. And I still doubt it at times, but that doubt doesn't linger nearly as much as like when I doubt other decisions. Like the knowing just kind of comes in and overwhelms every other part of it. And it's the same thing with my magic, right? Like there are times where like I do a spell and I can't tell, I'm like, yeah, that didn't go right. Something was off on that, right? Like I feel like something got mistranslated, the energy, the universe took the energy weird, I don't know, but it didn't work and I just know. And there's other times where I'm like, oh, I felt that. I don't know what that was, but like that worked, that did something. These results shall be interesting. No logical reason, I just know. Same thing when it came to deity. I was so explorative with it. I was so like, I don't fucking know. And there are a lot of times where I did. I felt nothing. I just knew this isn't working. This isn't happening. This is not it. And then suddenly I had some interesting encounters. Things happened. Weird dreams popped up and I was like, that me. Yes, truck. You know, it was just something that happened and I was like, oh, huh, that's something. That's got, whew. And even as I'm saying it right now, like I'm trying to describe the feeling. I'm trying to give a verbal account, and like in some ways I can describe the goosebumps or a tingle inside you. Like you want to impart this, you know, these senses, these ways of detecting when you know in this way, right? Like the same way where friends and family of mine would try to describe the aspects and the reasons when they think about their partner and why, and try to like dilute it down to something that they can pass on and say like, this is how you know, this is it. And quite honestly, it's almost impossible to do that. I can't quite describe to you how I know when spells work, how I know if this is a thing, how I know that there's like magic happening. How do you know entirely being contacted by a deity? I just knew that that dream in particular was different. I just knew that it's many coincidental things that happened to have a crocodile follow me in its tank around the zoo. That was something important. I just knew that was different than anything else, right? It's a feeling, and it doesn't have any logical reason to it. And sometimes maybe trying to put logic to it defeats the purpose of it. It gets weird, right? Because when people start saying there is no way for you to fully comprehend it yourself, right? Like it's the unknowable knowing until you know. And for me, that can border very quickly into, you know, you're either being a little culty, like follow me, I'm the only one with the way, or like, yes, this book has all the answers, like it is the knowing. And I'm like, no. But there's a postcard that my mother gave me a long time ago, which has the quote. It says it's by Buddha but quite honestly, like, again, back to the doubt thing. Just because it says the name at the bottom with a little line in the thing doesn't mean that that's the person that said the thing. So the quote is, believe nothing, no matter where you read it or who has said it, not even if I have said it, unless it agrees with your own reason and your own common sense. And it's that I guess I impart when someone says something and it contradicts something that you've known for an extremely long time in your life, like, right? That was a known, that was a I knew. It's only just someone presents you with a little bit of evidence that it's contradictory to that, and you're like, well, hell, right? Like, you just accept it immediately. You're like, oh, hell, I was presented with new evidence. I accepted this is no longer a truth about the world. I apparently was misinformed at some point. It's easy. It's just, right? And then there's other times when someone presents you with something and something just niggles you in the back and you're like, nope. That don't feel right. And I'm always cautious of this, right? This idea that we maybe overly invest too much in our intuition, that we listen too much to the little voices in the back of our monkey brains, and that maybe we need to learn better to listen to others around us. And in some respects, maybe that's true. But I also worry at times that maybe we're ignoring that intuition and that niggling in the back of our heads because there isn't a logical reason. How do you know if it's magic? How do you know if it's working? How do you know? Right now, we don't have the means to detect that. There's no scientific evidence that can fully come through and say, this is what it is. We don't know what happens to us after we die. We don't know what the hell really happened at the creation of the universe. We've got great hypotheses, great theories, you know. There's a bunch of different things out there, and new information could be discovered tomorrow that completely wipes the rest of it off and says, nope, it's actually the opposite. But sometimes I think to go through life, you just gotta respect when you know something. Like when you know you found the person you're meant to be with. Or when you know you're supposed to move somewhere, when you know it's time for a change, when you know that a habit or a spiritual practice is right for you. You know when something speaks to you. I don't think that we are not given these aspects, logic, reason, intuition, etc., to follow one exclusively or to only like disregard everything else because of this thing, right? I think these are all tools in our arsenal of life, and it's coming around to the balance and understanding that, hey, in different situations at different moments, each tool is important in its own right. And learning to accept when it is right to follow a specific tool, even if at times maybe everyone else is telling you no, or questioning, or asking why. It makes me wonder about how, I said earlier, I've never experienced that knowing with a partner. And I haven't, not yet. But I have experienced that knowing with my magic. I have experienced that knowing when I wanted to move. I've known very firmly, oddly enough for me, with my career. I always kind of knew from the minute I started writing, right? Like I had to tell stories. And I would do that in any way possible, whether it's through actual writing and literature, through comics, through poems, videos, whatever. Stories are necessary to me in my existence and happiness. And I just know that about myself. I'm a storyteller. I know I'm a witch. I know that I was meant to live in the Pacific Northwest. Something about this feels like home. I just know these things. And if you ask me to give away the reasons for the why, I don't have any for you. And I think that's kind of how magic works too. Sometimes you just know. And if you're questioning it too much, if something is niggling in the back of your head that says no, you don't know, then maybe it's just not right for you, you know what I mean? Nah. I don't know, how do you guys deal with that inner knowing that I'm attempting to describe here? You know, have you experienced it with a partner, with finding like the person who is the one? When you know, you know. Have you experienced it with a career field or place of living, maybe with a certain aspect of your life? What other times have you guys experienced the knowing that I'm attempting to describe here, if that makes sense? Anyway, I make new videos, hopefully more frequently now. We shall see. That's something I definitely don't know, is how I can attempt to keep up a regular schedule, but we try what we can. So I'll see you guys next time. Right, boo-boo? You will see them next time? Yes. Always talkative. Bye-bye.